First of all, I would like to offer a note of thanks to the people who prepared the sanctuary for Advent and placed the Advent wreath on this side, because for the last 2 years it was on this side and I couldn't see that half of the church. Thank you very much. See, I don't care if I can see the organist or the choir. What I say to you, I say to all, Jesus said, watch. And so, what are you watching for? What are you waiting for? Advent can be a confusing time because it's a time of preparation, a time of waiting for the coming of Christ, the coming of the Messiah. But are we preparing for, are we watching for, are we waiting for to celebrate his coming in Bethlehem as a baby? Or are we preparing, watching, and waiting for his coming at the time of each of our deaths and at the end of time? So, what are you waiting for? What are you watching for? In the last month of the liturgical year, which just ended yesterday, Scripture had us look seriously, as it does every year, at what in Catholic theology we call the last things. That is, death, judgment, heaven, and hell. And even though today we begin a new liturgical year with the season of Advent, the theme of the Scriptures this morning is much the same as it was for the last 4 weeks. If it weren't for the color of vestments and things, you wouldn't know there was any difference because the readings pretty much sound the same. Well, for the next 3 weeks after today, Scripture will be directing our attention more at celebrating the preparation for Christ's coming in Bethlehem. But not this week. You see, that's the confusing part about Advent. Are we looking back to celebrate Christ's coming in Bethlehem, or are we looking forward? Who knows? For the last few weeks, and this weekend also, the church invites us to do some soul searching in preparation for when Jesus comes again, and we, each of us, will be judged on how well we responded to the love that God so freely offered us. Now, soul searching isn't always a lot of fun. Not nearly as much fun as partying. And our culture has taken over Christmas and turned it into an orgy of shopping and decorating, partying. You know, our greedy, all-consuming culture has taken over when we judge the end of Advent not by when Christ will come, but by how many shopping days are left till Christmas. We know that we have been taken over by a secular, profane culture when it's not politically correct anymore to say Merry Christmas. We're supposed to say Happy Holidays so we don't offend anyone. Now, for us, supposedly people of faith, we are part of this culture. We've been born in it. We've been raised in it. It's come into us like osmosis. We've been sucked into the consumerism of our culture, where there is precious little place for God. Therefore, this time of year, from Black Friday on, becomes a preparation for the holidays, totally devoid of any reference to the coming of Christ, either in Bethlehem or at the end of time. This week, just this week, in response to the church's invitation, let's sort of try to pull ourselves out of this culture and stand against it in a sense. And let's, you and I, focus on the coming of Christ in all his glory at the end of time. That's what we await. In the first reading, we heard the prayer, the hope, rend the heavens and come down. That's what we're waiting for. That's what we hope for. That's what I hope we are preparing for. Resist the urge. Just this week. After that, you can do anything you want. But this week, resist the urge to get caught up in all of the hoopla. And at least this week, do some soul searching. Are you ready to meet the bridegroom, the King of the universe, Jesus the Christ? Are you ready to meet him when he comes again? Will you be ready to see his coming, and will you rejoice? Are there things you need to look at in your life and maybe tend to tweak in order to make space for him? When Jesus comes again, both at the time of our death, at the end of time, he will demand an accounting of how I lived my life. Not how many presents I bought, not how many parties I attended, not how many cookies I baked. He will simply let me see my life as he sees it. And in that, our judgment will be plainly visible. So, we have one more week to take a look at our lives and to take stock of what we're doing. What are we doing here on earth? Are we just sort of floating around aimlessly until we die? Or are we going somewhere? Are we waiting for something very special? If we pause this week and take a look at that, then we'll have plenty of time, and the scripture readings in the next 3 weeks will help us to focus on celebrating the birth of Christ. But for now, resist the urge and just look at your lives. Look at the reality that Christ will come again. And then you'll be able to answer with great certitude, what are you waiting for?